If you arrive at the end of Roxham Road between arrests, the most surprising thing is how normal this place looks. It used to be an official border crossing, but now the road is blocked by a small barrier and a ditch. There is a white monument near a street light with surveillance cameras on it, but there are no flags or other indications that this is a national border. That house on the American
some of the scenes from Roxham, an immersive documentary done in VR tells the story of Roxham Road. Of course, that border crossing near La Colle, which is getting so much media attention. Joining me now is Michel Huneau, the documentary photographer behind the project. Good morning, Michel.
Good morning.
Let's talk about this because, from what I understand about making, movies and projects and documentaries, projects like this, they take time. You sort of need approvals, and you're like, hey, we're going to work on this. And this is a very recent story in the last couple of years, what's happening in Roxham. When did you decide, I need to tell this story, and how did you get it up and running so quickly?
Yeah, no, you're right. It does take a lot of time. Last year, about in February, I had just published another Stories on Migration, another story with the Devoir, documenting how diasporas in different countries support each other. We had done that over 1 year in 4 different countries. And it was published beginning of February last year. At the same moment, we had the shooting, like the Quebec City Mosque, and I started to cover the aftermath. Was highly touched by that, by as many people. Yet at the same time, we were starting to document those irregular crossing at the border. And to me, it was just a natural, I was in the country at the time, was a natural interest. It was a very deep contrast with what was happening in Quebec City. So naturally, I went and I started to document what was happening.
Another thing about this, that it's done in VR, virtual reality, that adds a lot of complexity, right?
Yeah.
Why did you decide to make that decision to put it in VR?
Initially, I started to document with pictures, and then I realized the sound was very important. So I started to record each interception between the RCMP and the asylum seekers. And at some point, it was a personal project, and then I showed it to the Hugues Sweeney at the National Film Board, and said, I know your work, and I think this would be a great VR project to do with us. Would you like to expand on it?
And the support from the NFB, how has it been so far on this project?
It's been incredible. I mean, the interactive studio in Montreal, they're very cutting edge across the world, and their projects really in documentary approaches. And they assigned me a great interface designer, Maud Thibodeau, and also a sound designer, Chantal Duman. We work as a team to recreate what the user would see, that environment, that minimal environment online that brings you to Roxham.
You spent so much time there. What do the people at home need to know about what's the reality and what's happening there in Roxham Road?
Really, the objective is really come with me and experience it firsthand. Feel the emotion, feel the confusion, feel the complexity. It's very complex, both for the asylum seeker, for the RCMP, and even for the witness or the documenter. It's a very confusing and stressful moment.
What can you tell us about the people? Those people that are making that decision to, and the risks that it entails to make that crossing?
I think that's the first question that comes to mind when you're there. Yeah. What would it take me to leave everything behind and come here to cross?
Yeah.
And, over 6 months, I documented 180 crossing, and people came from 70 countries.
Wow.
All the crises and conflicts right now.
Do you have any stories to tell about maybe some of the emotion that you saw?
Yeah, for me, the first attempt that I saw was critical. It was the most important one for me. It was a young pregnant woman from Nigeria coming along with her suitcase, and she received the regular warning from the RCMP, which is mandatory, but she was highly intimidated. She froze in the ditch, her feet in the snow, and she hesitated a long time. And she cried for entering. At some point, on the other side, an American officer came and picked her up, and she never crossed. To be fair, it was one of the rare occasions that the person didn't cross. But to me, it was like, this is great what's happening. I'm not ashamed of what's happening at the border. But if it's not working for the most vulnerable, I don't think it's working.
How do we experience this documentary? How do we watch this?
It's available freely online on the National Film Board website, nfb.ca/Roxham. And you can access it from your desktop, from your phone. It's a 360 environment. If you had your VR gear at home, Samsung Gear, Oculus Rift, you can do it at home. If you're lucky in Montreal, you go to the Vice Center until August, and they have the best installation with Oculus Rift and the staff that guide you if you're not comfortable with, and then you're fully immersed and you're at Roxham.
I know the Vice Center quite well. It is a jewel here in the city, and I would strongly recommend that to be a great way to see it. What do you want people to take away from this project?
This is, you know, what's happening at Roxham, it's very complex. It requires a lot of attention. And what I want to contribute with that project is like, come here, witness that, because once you witness it, your attention is grasped and you will follow that file, that topic, with a much more engaged look. And it requires that because it's a very important topic. The world is on the move and we need to think about it all together.
Michel, I will be putting on my VR headset sometime later today. I can't wait to watch this full thing. Michel Luneau, behind the documentary Roxham, a story that needs to be told. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks.
We'll be back on BT with a look at your news headlines. Stay with us.